Okay, so I guess this is gonna be a part two or something. But so then he leaves with the older lady, and then she goes to volunteer, and now he's like chopping wood. Okay, so let's see what I forgot what wood symbolizes. Okay, so chopping wood symbolizes grounding, mindfulness, and the value of mundane labor, which volunteering, doing things like that could be considered mundane labor. You know, you're not getting paid, you're just doing it to help out, to be helpful. And mindfulness. So something happens around that right there when he gets upset that she leaves. And yeah, so when he's feeling like no one cares, um, he literally said to Karen, his brother's wife, that people do whatever they want, they don't care, right? And maybe that's what he would think when his brother would go to play with his friends, or he left the house, got married, went to college, and does all these things without him. He maybe feels like people just do whatever they want, they don't care. You know what I mean? Um, Things like that. And his dad was sad when his mother passed, and he was just doing what he wanted. He didn't care. He didn't care about showing up for his brother in that warmth, happy way that he was like he probably was before his dad's wife passed away. And then Karen was like, "That's not true." And then she kind of yells, and but even like her yell is like a whisper, and she was like, "That is just not true." And she goes, "You know why Bianca has so many places to go and so many things to do? Why we pick her up and put her to bed and wash her and stuff like that?" She's saying it's because we all care about you. She has all this because we care about you, right? Um, you know, so don't you dare tell me that we don't care. And then she leaves back into the house. And then that was a mindfulness. So then later on, he's hanging out with Bianca, and he's kind of realizing all the work that they put in for him. And because if they were putting her to bed and they were waking her up, then he wasn't putting her to bed and he wasn't waking her up. You know what I mean? Um, and all those other things that they were doing for him. So then his brother goes into the room to put her to bed, and Lars is already there, and he's like, "Oh, you don't need to do that. Like gonna, I've thought about it. I'm gonna start doing it." And so, he had another change in perspective right there. And then, um, okay, um, then he thanks his brother. You know what I mean? Sometimes we could be a little too hard on people, and then we realize, oh wow, they were doing all these things like I didn't know, and we don't always say thank you even when we realize that. It's important to say thank you. It's important to say sorry, I think, in my opinion, but I wouldn't put too much energy on it if you're waiting for thank you and sorries. Just maybe give it to yourself and move on. Like, you gotta let things flow. You can't stay stuck, you know, yourself, and you gotta communicate too if you feel that you're owed that, even if you kind of look crazy. So then he thanks his brother, and his brother goes, "Oh, you don't have to thank me." And then I think that's what he said, or no, his brother said, "I didn't do anything," and then I think Lars said that he did. You know what I mean? And then now Lars is in the office again, and he doesn't like Margot's new boyfriend. And now Lars is going to Margot, right? Where we never seen him go to her desk. And now he goes to her desk. And she's like, "Yeah." And then he's like, "Hmm." And then he goes to his desk. And maybe he wanted to argue, though. You know what I mean? Like express some emotion. You know what I mean? Even if it would have looked crazy, right? He wanted to. And instead of doing that, I think that's when we see him arguing with Bianca. And that was like one of the first arguments he had with her. And then when he goes to the doctor's visit after that, he tells the doctor that he tells the doctor that Bianca doesn't want to get married. And then him and Bianca are arguing again after the doctor's visit, I think. And then we see after that argument that Lars is talking to his big brother, and his wife, the big brother's wife, is outside talking to Bianca, right, chilling, and the which is like a feminine thing, you know, just being around other women, talking. Like we see men do it too, but we see women do it too. You know what I mean? So it's important for men to get together and have conversations about what they like, what they don't like, you know, communicate. And it's important also for women to gather together and talk about what they like, what they don't like, and communicate amongst each other honestly, authentically, I think. So the wife and Bianca are outside, and then the brother and Lars are inside. And the brother is cutting up like celery and stuff like that. So he's about to like, so he's like cooking, right? Usually when you're cutting up celery and like potatoes, I think that's what he was cutting up, and carrots, he was maybe making a soup or something like nurturing, honest, as well. So um, we normally see that as a feminine thing, and then you know as they're talking and what they're talking about Lars is asking him how did you know you were a man, you know, that how did you like, is there a rite of passage and stuff like that. And then the brother was kind of thinking, right? And then now they're in the laundry room, and then the brother's also doing laundry, so we see that he's cooking and he's doing laundry, and his verbal response was you know, you do the right thing, you don't jerk people around, and you know, you do the right thing not just for you but for everybody, even when it hurts. You don't jerk people around, you don't cheat on your woman, you take care of your family and admit when you're wrong, right? So we did see um, that the brother was like cooking and like doing laundry, so he was helping out around the house. So we don't see the wife ever at a job working. um Maybe she did before, who knows if she wants to or whatever, but while she was pregnant we didn't see that she was working, and she's pregnant throughout the whole movie. And you know the wife helps out a lot, right? Like she was bathing Bianca, she was changing Bianca, putting on her shoes, that's an act of labor, especially of love, when you're pregnant and stuff like that, and growing something within yourself. But and so it's not like she doesn't do anything. But the husband, it's like he wasn't, when he was saying literally this, you don't jerk people around, you do the right thing for not just for you but for everybody. um he's not making his wife, especially his pregnant wife, like do all the labor, like around the house, even though we see that he has a job and he probably pays all the bills, I'm assuming, at least in that time. um so he's doing the right thing, he's not like um oh my god, hold on. Okay, so we're going out of storage. Okay, so now we're at the end, and so basically the brother was telling him about not jerking people around, and we see that he's actually like that. He's not just telling him to be like that because he's cooking, he's cleaning, and he's not making his wife do all the housework. Which some guys, when they pay all the bills, um, they kind of act like that. Like, why pay all the bills? So you should be doing all the housework and like not complaining and stuff like that. And when you actually do all the housework, the cooking, and like they expect you to do breakfast, lunch, dinner. That's 3 things, and then clean up. at least once during that day. Like you could leave everything and then clean up, like to clean up breakfast, lunch, and dinner by yourself in one day, like every day, like it adds up to a lot of labor. And that's just that, you know what I mean? Let alone, the bathroom, and people use that every day. Like maybe you know, so it is a lot of work when you do all the housework. And then now he's at work again, and Bianca um is um let's see. Now Bianca's teddy bear, because she has a physical thing too. Like I mentioned it earlier, the guy in the office had all these physical things. Um, she has that too. She had the teddy bear. So and then she expressed a little bit later that she had dealt with loneliness too. So that was like her physical thing. A lot of people who have all these physical things outside of themselves often do. Not everyone, but it's a theme that I've seen commonly is people do take care of their things, like their stuffed animals and things like that, because when they're lonely, they hug them, and they don't feel so lonely anymore. And that's energy. Energy is a very real thing. You know what I mean? So then that teddy bear probably meant a lot to her because of that. Same thing for him. So she was just so basically we see that her teddy bear had like a noose, like a rope around it, like to kill itself, um, or to be hanged or something. And she tells the guy who did it in the office to take it off, and then I think he said that's what she gets for like taking my stuff or something, like tit for tat. You know what I mean? Which is he has some growing up to do. And then Lars, what did he do? He manned up. He didn't jerk people around. He helped her, and he is also using his imagination to help her, right? Um, like imaginary friends type of thing. And um, he was helping her friend, and he took the noose off himself, and he's like talking to her, and he's being nurturing. And she was saying that she it wasn't just that she went through a breakup, and she didn't really like the guy, so you know but he was like, Lars said, why were you even dating him then? And she said that she gets lonely. And then I think she invited him to bowl, and she had invited him to things before, but she wasn't like holding it against him like how the office guy was doing, like, oh, you took my stuff, I'm gonna do something to your stuff, you know what I mean? Well, you shouldn't touch my stuff. When she kept inviting him and being like that with him, she wasn't holding it over his head like, well, that's what you get because you keep saying no to my invitations. She just invited him again. You know what I mean? It's a new day type of thing. And so she invites him bowling. He actually said yes that time. Um, you know, and then they go bowling, and she's being herself, and she's happy, and she's like being quirky, and it's like he likes her quirky self. You know what I mean? So she didn't stop being herself, and she didn't like do that. She just stayed her authentic self the whole time, which is okay. Um, and then other people from the office join, and it just seems like a fun thing for everyone, and Lars is enjoying it. And anyhow, gosh, it's so yeah. So then 59. So now they're bowling, and he when they leave, Lars extends a hand, and he's gonna shake her hand, which he's never done that before because physical touch used to really hurt, and he's been working on that with the doctor. So when he extends a hand, we see that Bianca is like that's like her first response, and it's like I think he notices it. So then it's like, oh, she may not be as comfortable with physical touch too. Who knows, right? And then like they shook hands and then they stayed like that for a while. I think that was like him being nurturing to her, when someone nurtures you, it helps you to do the same, right? So now he had that older feminine kind of motherly energy from the doctor that she was extending to him and his brother, um, graciously. And then when Bianca, Margot wasn't maybe as comfortable with physical touch. We don't know. We just see that she kind of like just took a breath and looked down, and then she shook his hand. Maybe he was doing that for her in that moment. Who knows? But it was nice. And they're acknowledging the snow, and she loves the snow, and like I said, cold can represent feminine energy. Okay. Um, so yeah. Then 59. Okay, this is nice. Then he goes to see the doctor again, and she's letting him think for himself. So he's looking for her opinion on something. I didn't really write down what it was, but I think he was looking for her opinion on something, and the doctor wasn't giving her opinion on nothing. She was just like, um, okay, okay, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like letting him think for himself, which is like, I really like that. She wasn't like playing puppet master and like, oh, you should do this, you should do that. Like a lot of people do that, men and women. I think it's a little bit more of a, I want to make another video on that. So, but I like that she wasn't doing that. And then I think Lars is at church again. Yeah, he's at church again. And the pastor says, when I was a child, I understood as a child. And the camera is on Lars. And maybe Lars understood things as a child, but now he's understanding things in a different way. And he now understands things probably more clearly. And then I think before that, actually, before he went to church, he did find Bianca unconscious. So he was starting to let go of the mother wound, and then he goes to church. And then, and I think now Bianca's dying. So first he finds Bianca unconscious, then he goes to church, and then he hears that message. And when the pastor said, when I was a child, I understood things as a child. So now he's understanding things differently. And then after that, then Bianca dies. So before that, she was unconscious. After that, she dies. But she's in the hospital. And, now the town is sad, right? Um, and we see that he gets all these, like, the family and Bianca get, like, get well cards, which is really nice. And they invite Lars to the lake. So now they go to the lake again, but this time the brother doesn't go to the lake just with his wife without Lars. They invite him to go, which is nice. So another healing thing and another change in perspective, right? Like he's not so alone. He doesn't really need this like physical thing that isn't like that is like a doll or something you could carry around with you, if that makes sense. And then, the wife and the husband go for a walk while they're at the lake, and then they see that Lars dips Bianca in the river, right? I'm not gonna, so he dips her in the river, and I think after that she passed. And um, the, the water and dipping someone in the water, it's renewal and it's healing, right? So it's winter, and after winter, it's spring, which is renewal and healing. Um, and then everyone's at the funeral, and that's so funny. I thought I wrote this down. Why isn't it here? I think it was just 3 pages. But now they're at the funeral and they're at church again, and the priest is talking about what Bianca did, and it was a lesson. But again, they were talking about Lars, I think. And he says it's a lesson in courage, and Bianca loved all of us. Oh, I'm gonna cry. It's not funny. So then, when he said that it was a lesson on courage, that was for like Lars. Like that was very courageous when the town was like talking about him, and he just like stood his ground and was doing, taking Bianca places, and he was happy. He stayed in his joy, but especially because his brother and his sister and the doctor. Well, I'm sorry. Mainly because in the beginning, the feminine energies were a lot more like the office girl Margot, the brother's wife Karen, and the doctor. I think her name was, oh god, what was it? Dagmar. So yeah, they were like very like encouraging. You know what I mean? So yeah, I lost my train of thought. But then when he said, and Bianca loved all of us, um, he was talking about Lars. You know what I mean? And um, when Lars was saying, I'm here to help, no, Bianca said that she was um, born to help people. He was saying that in the beginning, and then that plays out. So now, at the end of the movie, when him and Karen got into it, he and Karen was saying that all these people in the town are helping Bianca, and she has so much now because of him, because they love him. Now that she's passed, and they're saying that Bianca loved everyone, everyone is realizing that Lars loved them too, even though he was like pretty like distant and quiet in the beginning of the movie. He's very kind to everyone during the movie. The receptionist, the girl coworker, the guy coworker. Um, he's not like judgmental to the guy coworker. His brother, everyone, the elderly ladies, everyone. Um, so he loves everyone in the town too, right? And now, after the funeral, Gus is talking to the doctor, and then Gus is saying he's pretty incredible, huh? And the doctor says, yeah. And then Gus thanks the doctor, which I think, yeah, giving thanks is important. It's not necessary, no one needs anything, but it's important to say thank you. Like, okay, sorry. And in a way, oh, okay, so then Margot is talking to Lars, and now we're at the end, and she's like honoring that because he was letting go of the mother wound, I think, like, through that whole thing. And she goes, in a way, there'll never be anyone like her. And she wasn't saying a joke just because she was a doll. She was like serious. You know what I mean? And throughout the movie, we see snowflakes, we see snow, we see this cold energy, and a snowflake, no matter how many there is, and they all look the same, you know, like to our eyes, but when you leave it frozen and you put a microscope under it, each individual snowflake is totally different. There's never going to be one snowflake like another, right? So she was honoring that, you know, and I think that's really nice. So I really liked every single one of the characters in this movie, and I really appreciate all the characters and the role that they played in this movie. It was really nice. And that is it for Lars and the Real Girl for male loneliness. Hopefully, you guys got some little perspective out of it. And I love you guys. Happy Valentine's Day. And I hope I get these videos out tomorrow. Bye.